Now, an I-Team investigation. COVID con artists. Millions of small business owners around the country relied on Paycheck Protection Program loans to help stay afloat during this pandemic.
But there have been more and more cases of fraud tied to these loans. The feds are already getting some of their money back and launching criminal investigations. News4JAX I-Team investigator Tark Miner joins us after talking with the Special Investigator General heading up the search for COVID relief fraud.
The Office of the Special Inspector General for Pandemic Recovery is relatively new, but it does a lot to keep an eye on how your tax dollars are spent looking for COVID con artists. Already, the Inspector General has sent more than 100 investigations to law enforcement for potential prosecution involving CARES Act programs, including the Paycheck Protection Program. The help came at a critical time for small businesses, the largest federal emergency aid in U.S. history, $669 billion in PPP loan money, which in turn has called for unprecedented oversight of people obtaining the federal money illegally.
The Lord will give you encouraging signs. Stay in faith.
That's Aslan International Pastor Evan Edwards on his Facebook page. Federal investigators say the Central Florida pastor and his family defrauded the government out of $8.4 million in PPP loan money. The government is now getting that money back through a civil judgment. Investigators say Evan, seen here with his wife Mary Jane and adult children Josh and Joy, attempted to buy this $3.5 million home in the Four Seasons private community at Walt Disney World.
Embrace me, O Lord.
The family operated out of a small office in this building in Orlando, but they didn't conduct religious services according to the Department of Justice. It's just one of the red flags the Special Inspector General of Pandemic Recovery, Brian Miller, and his team are looking for.
They are as diverse and as many as people can think of. Sometimes they overstate their assets and understate their liabilities. Sometimes they say they have more employees than they have. Sometimes they create fictitious corporations.
News4JAX has learned the fraud is so enormous, the Department of Justice is hiring local trial attorneys, anticipating extremely large caseloads and prosecutions that could drag on for years. What's your reaction when you hear people going out and buying Lamborghinis with federal money, buying boats and expensive houses?
You know, that really gets me. That galls me. And they are doing that. We found instances where they are doing that. We came across something recently where they bought a yacht and an airplane. We will catch you. We are looking at all the information we can.
To give you an idea of how much taxpayer money was borrowed to keep small businesses across Northeast Florida up and running, the News4JAX I-Team broke down the latest data from the Small Business Administration by the type of business. Food service, which includes restaurants and caterers, borrowed the most, more than $355 million in PPP loan money. Area nonprofits were next, borrowing more than $230 million. Doctors and dentist offices locally received more than $213 million in PPP loans. Contractors, including electricians, plumbers, and air conditioning contractors, borrowed $131 million, followed by lawyers, whose firms combined borrowed more than $89 million. Under the PPP loan guidelines, borrowers qualify for loan forgiveness if they meet certain requirements for 24 weeks after getting the loan, including using the money for payroll and other eligible expenses.
The future of the Paycheck Protection Program now is to get people the forgiveness if they spent the money the way it was supposed to be spent.
Senator Marco Rubio points out that the majority of small business owners used the PPP loan money correctly and relied on it to keep their businesses open during the height of the pandemic. Rubio is also aware of the growing fraud, saying it's important the federal government holds those who misuse CARES Act money accountable.
I think the key is to find the people who have abused the program, people who have committed fraud, and put them in jail and make an example of them. And I think you're going to see investigations in the years to come.
If you suspect a business is defrauding the federal government with CARES Act money, call the Inspector General's hotline at 202-927-7899. We've also put that number inside the story on news4jax.com. Also on news4jax.com, you'll find a searchable database with every local company that received a PPP loan, including how much they received, how they plan to spend it, and whether or not it's been paid back.
As Tarek said, that we have a database of all of the local PPP loans on news4jax.com. Look for this story on the homepage, and you'll find that database at the bottom of the story. Very interesting.